Hello and welcome to Politics Today, reaching you live from our global headquarters here in the nation's commercial nerve center, Lagos. 7 days into the new year, and it's January the 7th. A lot happens in the polity. Let's bring you up to speed. Perhaps, I remember during the election, the second term of Godwin Obaseki of Edo State. I do remember when they were saying, Edo no be Lagos. And with what is playing out in Rivers State, I don't know whether Edo is now turning to Rivers or Rivers turning, I don't even know what's going on. But there are a couple of developments in that area. You heard it when we read it on in the headlines. We're going to bring you up to speed with that. But broadly, what we're dealing with today has to do with the state of the nation. I'll be joined by former minister in the Muhammadu Buhari's cabinet, who will be exploring some of the issues around the country and the continent. And also we'll touch base with some of the things happening in Rivers State on the program. But let's tell you, first of all, first and foremost, that the governor of Edo State, Monday Okwebolo, says he will support the acting chairman of the local government councils who were elected chairman recently after the impeachment by members of the legislative arms, by the suspension of the substantive chairman. They were suspended and then they were impeached, some of them, and now they are acting chairman. They said they are to be the acting chairman, who are said to be members of the People's Democratic Party, along with some party leaders from various areas, during his address meeting with the governor and top government officials, as well as the All Progressives Congress leaders at the Festival Hall in Government House in Benin City, the state capital, where they pledged their allegiance to the governor and his administration. So during his remarks, he accuses some PDP leaders in the state of allegedly dipping their hands in the cookie jar through the suspended chairman. Let's take a listen to him.
I saw environmental security funding. I never heard that before. And the amount involved is huge, 800 million. Every month, this chairman contributes this money to give a leader of one particular party. And in our schools, we don't have teachers. When you get to primary school, you find 2-3 teachers when you are supposed to have about 12 teachers. I don't know how to reconcile such. So I felt I should invite them, and I actually invited them. That day, unfortunately, I didn't have time to meet with them directly, but my deputy did. He asked for a simple thing. Explain this. They could not explain. He said, okay, if you cannot explain, give me your books. Provide me with your books. That's how we'll bring it in 24 hours. The man said, no. We give you 48 hours. Bring these books to us. 2 weeks, nothing happened. I felt we have two governors in the state. Local government as governor, then governor as governor. I said, no, this cannot happen. I have to send a letter to BFCC to please look into these people's record. At the same time, as a parliamentarian, I know there are people that have oversight function rights over them, which is the state assembly. I also sent a letter to the state assembly. Invited them, they refused to come, and state assembly decided to say, okay, we suspend you for two months so that we can look into your record. That is it. They started moving from pillar to pole.
Well, an interesting development in Edo State. We've been on this conversation over and over as to how this plays out in the law, given the LG autonomy. But as it is in politics, we'll continue to watch and wait for interpretation as we proceed with the game. Let's take you to Ghana, where the president, I'm sure perhaps being on his way now to Nigeria, President Bola Tinubu says the continent of Africa does not need the validation of anyone outside its shores because it is capable of providing itself to advance, or for itself to advance democracy and development. He stated this during his speech in Accra while congratulating Ghana's new president, John Dramani Mahama, joined his swearing in as Ghana's president and said Nigeria will support the West African country. Mahama was inaugurated on Tuesday, that's today, in Accra, marking his return to office after he served as Ghana's president. President Tinubu, who was among world leaders at the event, noted that the friendship between him and John Mahama is quite important, pledging Nigeria's backing for Ghana.
Your Excellency,
today we celebrate African democracy as Ghana and our beloved people mark the transition from one democratic government to another. This moment does not merely symbolize another milestone in the evolution of Ghanaians' democratic society. It further demonstrates that in West Africa, we are capable of democratic and productive endeavors. It is time that our continent critics stop forgetting the strides that Ghana, Nigeria, and others have made. We need not prove ourselves to them. We have nothing to prove to anyone except ourselves. We will lift our nations out of poverty and build strong and resilient economies for our people.
President of Nigeria, Bola Tinubu, is during the inauguration of President Mahama in Accra, Ghana. So that's the position of our president, who is also the chair of ECOWAS, saying that Africa doesn't need anyone's validation. But we're going to explore a lot of issues that has to do with our country, Nigeria. It's an ongoing conversation, but let's bring you our political roundup stories.
Governor Abdullahi Sule of Nasarawa State has issued marching orders to permanent secretaries to sustain the tempo in line with the goals of his administration. Governor Sule handed down the orders during a meeting with permanent secretaries and local government chairmen at the government house in Lafia, the state capital. The meeting is coming after the governor dissolved members of the State Executive Council. The governor maintained that in the remaining 2 years of his administration, he would aggressively pursue his goals, especially in the implementation of the 2025 budget.
We are also seeing a lot coming to us, and we want to do the best. That's why I said I want the chairman also to be here, so that they can hear. They have to be part and parcel of us. They have to buy into what we are doing at the various MDAs.
In Bauchi State, Governor Bala Mohammed has reshuffled his cabinet, dropping 5 commissioners. In a release by the Special Advisor, Media and Publicity to the governor, Mr. Mukhtar Gidado notes that the move is strategic to strengthen governance and improve service delivery in Bauchi State. The affected commissioners are Commissioner of Education, Dr. Jamila Dahiru, Internal Security and Home Affairs, Barrister Bakar Bununu, Information and Communication, Usman Dan Turaki, Agriculture, Professor Simon Yalams, and that of Religious Affairs and Societal Reorientation, Alhaji Yakubu Hamza. To Akwa Ibom State, where Governor Umo Eno is assuring the newly appointed Commissioner of Police, Mr. Baba Muhammad Azare, of necessary support to enable him combat crime, as well as maintain peace and security in the state. The governor gave the assurance when he received the new police commissioner, who paid a courtesy visit to his office in Government House, Uyo. Governor Eno decries the spate of vandalization of public facilities, especially transformers, saying it costs government a lot to replace vandalized transformers while also hindering rural development.
So we welcome you, and on behalf of the government and people of Akwa Ibom, we congratulate you again, and we welcome you as you assume duty.
The Deputy Chief Whip of the Senate and the Senator representing the Ebonyi North Senatorial District, Senator Peter Oyekachi Nwebonyi, has urged Nigerians to be patient with President Bola Tinubu, stating that his economic policies are yielding positive results, believing that the current economic hardship facing the nation is temporary and will soon subside. Senator Nwebonyi highlighted the significance of the ongoing tax reforms bill and emphasized that the successful implementation of these reforms will serve as a catalyst for economic growth and development within the nation.
This is going to stimulate economic activities in all the federated states. It's going to be the more you work, the more you eat. And it's going to encourage us, and it's still hard work in our governors that is heading the federated states.
The chairman of the Association of Local Government Chairmen of Nigeria and Kebbi State, Mr. Mohammed Nayaya, says local government councils across the country will struggle to pay workers' salary without the support of state governments. Speaking to journalists in his office in Birnin Kebbi, Nayaya says Kebbi State has not faced any issues with local government autonomy due to Governor Idris's commitment to safeguarding the rights and privileges of councils.
All right, welcome back. Those are the political roundup stories we're going to touch. It's going to be a potpourri of issues that we'll touch on the state of our nation. We're being joined on the program by the former Minister of Sports under the Muhammadu Buhari administration, Mr. Solomon Dalong. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Mr. Dalong, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Good evening, Nigerians, and a compliment of the season.
Yes, compliment of the season to you. Let's just begin with something I noticed briefly. The president is actually in Ghana. I'm sure he's on his way back from Ghana. But Ghana has now gotten its first vice president, female vice president, I should say, since their independence and since their fourth republic. We haven't been that fortunate to get this. I'm just curious to find out from you as a politician. Is Nigeria ever going to be ready in the short term for female leadership at that level? Because I think the highest political office we've seen by a woman in Nigeria is Patricia Ete, and she left under controversial circumstances as the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Right now, the Senate is made up of maybe 4 or 6 women. The same abysmal number is also for women in the House of Reps. So I just needed you to speak to the issue of women representation in politics in Nigeria.
Let me congratulate the first female president of the Republic of Ghana.
Vice President.
The milestone recorded, yes, female vice president, and the milestone recorded so far in their democratic journey. Now back to the issue of female representation in Nigeria, and the hope of when likely are we going to have a woman either as a vice president or a president. I think, in my own opinion, the male leadership is working very hard to unbundle the access for women to access power. Because looking at the way governance has been handled by men with a predominant population and the abysmal performances and lack of even development, progress. Things are changing so fast, especially with the current situation. So I see a situation where in the future, the political dynamics will have to be a power balance, not only a geopolitical power shift, but we will be heading towards even a geo-demographic and a shift towards even having female incorporated within the structure of leadership. So that is likely going to come very, very soon, especially looking at the future, 2027.
Okay, it will be interesting to see because some of us are he for she. We would like to see that level because I know there was once PDP, I've forgotten her name. I think it's Sarah Jibril. I think that's her name. She even contested in the primaries. Sarah Jibril. I think she had only 1 vote or no vote. So that's just to tell you how difficult it is for women to access power. But that's a conversation for another day. Before we come to the issue of the current administration and how they are managing the affairs of state by your own assessment, I know I listened to you talk about Muhammadu Buhari and his administration. I don't know what you were... Some people are saying the administration, in their words, were a monumental disaster. Others have saying this government is gaining from some of the things it left off, like the refinery and some of the roads. I don't know what yours will be, but I remember you said in that conversation that Buhari was used and dumped. He was a stranger in his own government. Maybe you can speak to that.
Well, yeah, in one of the last interviews I had in a podcast with one of your staff here, I did mention that as we continue to heap blames on the Muhammadu Buhari's government and then the bulk shifting, that, oh, we inherited this, we inherited that. President Muhammadu Buhari, like I said, was a stranger in his own government. And that government of Muhammadu Buhari was even run jointly by the current president, because he nominated about 5 ministers in that government, and he nominated even a vice president. And coming to the issue of President Muhammadu being a stranger in his own government, what I meant actually was that there was an initial intention upon which we campaigned. We got the buy-in of majority of Nigerians and their investments in campaigns to produce President Muhammadu Buhari. But the government was not a reflection of the stakeholders who brought it into office. Rather, we had the emergence of a power cult that sort of hijacked power at that level, and that things were completely done out of context of the initial promises and the covenant had with Nigerians. So the president was more or less a stranger in a government where he was popularly elected, and the government failed woefully to meet its campaign promises.
I know that. So let's come to the current administration. What's your view of the current administration, the person and the president called Bola Tinubu? Because you've also said that President Bola Tinubu is surrounded by a sophisticated cabal. That's how you reference this government.
Well, Nigerians should understand when the discussion about cabal is raised. I know some previous presidential aides in their books they publish and interviews had tried to downplay the existence of a cabal in the Nigerian presidential system. And I think it will be very, very unfair to posterity to deny the existence of such very dangerous political element that will take over power, pursue its own ulterior motive, using the popular manifesto that was used to gain power. Of course, President Muhammadu Buhari's government had cabal. That is known, and that I've attested to. But I'm saying that President Muhammadu Buhari's cabal was made up of people who were not quite informed, who had little experiences in politics and public administration and governance. And so their activities were more or less limited to their parochial view of understanding of power relations and extending of their hands into helping themselves with public purse. But President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's cabal is made up of sophisticated and ambitious group of people who had a very long history in power. They are experienced, they are educated, and so they have a sound knowledge of what power is. And since they are an ambitious set of people, the presidency will suffer more than that of President Muhammadu Buhari, because their capacity to manipulate power, their capacity to also build either security barricades around the president and stifle information from getting to the president except that which they wanted, and then the control of human traffic of those they will want to access the president. This cabal are masters, and therefore they will be more dangerous. They are more dangerous, really, than any cabal in the history of this country, to the best of my own knowledge.
All right, Mr. Dalong, picking it from your statement that you just made now, is there anything you think they are doing, the people that are shielding, protecting, or stopping the president or limiting him from knowing the reality on ground? What exactly are you seeing as the impact on ground from what is going on within the presidency?
Well, from my experience as somebody who has served in government and was very, very close with the president and understands how these things work, there are instances I can make reference to. Let's take the issue of the nomination of ministers. I mean, there were ministers that were nominated and a letter signed by the president sent to the National Assembly. Some of them were dropped before they could arrive at the National Assembly. Some arrived at the National Assembly before they were informed that they had been changed. And there were a war of words in Kano, to be specific, where the national chairman was alluding to the fact that they didn't know who brought or who nominated or brought the name for nomination. That is evidence of the power play of a cabal who will substitute names, try to introduce names, manipulate even records, presidential records at strategic locations to distort information. Another incident I can refer to was during the protest. There was a protest that was declared in this country from the 1st to the 10th of August. There was a 40-day notice given by the organizers of the protest against bad governance. They had also their demands. And 4 days into the protest, the president addressed the country, and his address was completely as if he arrived from a different planet. The issue of the protest was not even given any attention, either condemning it or attempting to explain or appealing. The president only did that shortly after 2 or 3 days when he met with journalists again and was appealing to Nigerians and the protesters about the policies of government. So this rigmarole that is happening within the corridor of power is evidence of the acts of cabal. There are so many, but time is our enemy.
Okay, I want to throw in as many questions as possible. So what would be your assessment of the management of the resources of Nigeria? Because depending on who you're speaking to, the supporters are saying it's doing pretty well, it's resetting the country, it will take a bit of time. The average Nigerian is saying this is the worst they've ever had, and they are really tired and they're exhausted from the cost of living, for instance. What's your own view?
Well, the assessment of every government in Nigeria should be with Chapter 2 of the Constitution, which begins by saying the primary aim of government is the overall well-being of the citizens. And then you can also go to the Bible again, where this verse that says, when the righteous are in power, the people rejoice, and when the wicked are in power, the people mourn. So when you take this biblical verse and align it with chapter 2, you now come back to the issue of what is the situation in the country. Are Nigerians rejoicing over the policies of this government? Certainly, I believe Nigerians are not, because at each point I interacted with common people, they are frustrated and they are not speaking good of the government and even the country itself. Now, when we talk about how have they been able to manage the resources of this country, let me begin by congratulating the president, because I read that Port Harcourt Refinery and Wari are on stream, even though I had not confirmed that. But let me congratulate them. I'm not criticizing, because if I criticize and it is true, they will arrest me like they have arrested my friend. So I'm congratulating them for bringing the 2 refineries on stream. But I think there is much that we expect from this government, which is accountability. What has happened to the proceeds of the fuel subsidy withdrawn from the 29th of May till date? Because the development on the ground is not commensurate. If Abacha's withdrawal of fuel subsidy was not complete, it was just a percentage, and we could see massive development cutting across all sectors of the economy. And here you have a holistic withdrawal of fuel subsidy. Yet, Nigerians are groaning, suffering, and facing untold hardship, with the president telling us that, well, he has no regret over his policies. We don't expect him to regret. But of course, for me, I expect him as a father of the nation to be compassionate. Because if he's not regretting, it means what he is doing, as well intended as it may be, I mean, the intention is not quite noble, which is not part of leadership.
Well,
so I think this government...
Mr. Dalong, just a moment. What would you want him to do differently?
I expect the president to have been compassionate, that even if he believed in the policies and did not carry Nigerians along, he has a responsibility to convince the country, because Nigeria does not mean him and his government. But the over 230 million people are Nigerians, and there must be Nigerians before Nigeria. But from his statement, it meant, I mean, even if Nigerians do not exist, he doesn't bother, which is not good enough for a leader.
Okay, I know you mentioned in passing that let's talk about the civic space. I don't know which of your friends that you talked about. Maybe tell us which of your friends that criticized the government and was arrested.
Comrade Mahdi Shehu is schooling up in Kaduna Medium Correctional Facility, and is being prosecuted for uploading an unverified video.
So what do you...
He's a non-critic of APC and this government.
So are you saying that the APC is intolerant to dissenting voice? Is that your assertion? Is that what you're trying to communicate?
Of course. The APC is intolerant to, the voice of dissent. Because the management of the protest is evidence. A protest is a constitutional right of citizens to express their grievances. And the Police Act also empowers the IG to protect citizens who are protesting. Notices were given to the government, and the government descended, on the citizens. Many lost their lives, many were arrested, and instead of addressing the issue, the citizens were referred to as terrorists, those who protested. The National Security Advisors referred them to as terrorists. He addressed the National Council of State and informed them that they had terrorists in custody. We were waiting for the terrorists to appear in court just for us to see underage children who had been starved, malnourished, in custody, and they were collapsing. That forced the judge to abandon the trial. So that singular act, and the government ended up the trial, discontinued the trial, and some form of compensation had been paid by the governors all over. But had the government apologized for that? Certainly not. So that is an act of intolerance under democracy.
Are you worried? I know you were perhaps a founding member of the APC and you were very close to President Muhammadu Buhari. Now we have the Tinubu administration running into 2 years by May this year. Are you worried about the future of that party, of the ruling party? And if you have worries, what are those worries? Given the fact that you were founding members, what have they done or missed? Because they have their posturing as well.
Well, I am worried, to be very honest, as a founding member of the party. I believe in the principles upon which the party was founded. I believe in the manifestos of the party. But the way the party had managed governance is worrisome. And if this party continues the way it is, where, of course, internal democracy within the party completely had been sacrificed, that appears not to exist again. And without internal democracy, democracy becomes a sham. So I am worried, again, looking at the electoral process. Our electoral process had not been quite transparent enough. Therefore, if the party continued on this trajectory of lack of internal democracy and without a transparent electoral process, one, Nigerians will become frustrated, and electoral apathy or voter apathy will step in, and people might not be interested in democracy any longer. So this government has a responsibility, or APC has a responsibility, to improve on its credentials. These two indices, democratic indices I've made reference to improve upon them. And of course, if they are going to take me up on this, let me guide them with the current situation. The national chairman of APC is from Kano, Northwest. Before election, the national chairmanship was zoned to North Central. Abdullahi Adamu was elected. By the constitution of the party, after Abdullahi Adamu had resigned, the next person should also come from the North Central, because, power has been shared. But you can see now that the North Central had been shortchanged. The Northwest had benefited more. It has speaker there, it has deputy senate president, and it has the national chairman there. This is anti-democratic.
Okay. So just last question, if you can land in 30 seconds. I always throw this to my guests because we will get to a point where we'll go for another election. What form of reforms would you want to see in the Electoral Act to better serve the Nigerian people so that their voices eventually count when they go out to the polls? In 30 seconds.
INEC should digitalize election process in Nigeria. We have elected people using digital technology all over. So why is it difficult for INEC to use the same process to elect leaders. I mean, people have emerged from different processes globally, and it has been credible. So why are we afraid of using the same method when Nigerians can, from their smartphone, elect presidents? So we should digitalize the process of electing our leaders, and we should also give Nigerians, whether in Nigeria or in diaspora, the right to decide who governs Nigeria.
All right, Mr. Dalong, thank you so much. Do you have any future ambition to run for any office? I know you served as minister. Are you going to run for any office anytime soon?
Well, you know, contesting election depends on the people. So if I'm invited by the people, I will run. But I think I'm also qualified to run for the presidency of Nigeria.
That's interesting. Okay, Solomon Dalong, former Minister of Sports under the Muhammadu Buhari administration. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on the program. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at another angle to the Rivers political impasse. This time, 1.1 trillion naira budget presented to the Victor Okojombo Assembly, and the court has actually backed that presentation, pending the determination of the suit at the Supreme Court. A gentleman who has served under Nyesom Wike as Commissioner for Information and also a communication consultant will be joining me to break down the issues to the best of his ability. Join us again. Back. Perhaps the two states in the news the most in the last maybe 1 year or so should be Rivers and Edo State. Sometimes you really just don't want to talk about some of these things, but they keep evolving every other day. Looks like the center stage or the hotbed of all kinds of political intrigue. Rivers State, for instance, I do not know, perhaps arguably the most state with the most litigation in terms of the politics that goes on there. And we've discovered a little bit of a pattern there when it comes to who gets what judgment and from where, depending on whether it's pro-Wike or pro-Fubara. And somehow, in December this year, Peter Odili, the former governor of the state, has found himself in the mix of this controversy. Would they ever get out of the news? We do not know. But hey, it's politics, and the show is called Politics Today. If it's happening, we'll bring it up to speed. We're being joined in the program by a former Commissioner of Information and Orientation in Rivers State, an academic and communication consultant. Also, his name, Dr. Austin Tam George. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me.
How was it working with Nyesom Wike?
Well, it was pretty interesting. It was very interesting. You know, I didn't meet him before. You know, he just called me, and eventually we met, and then he shared his vision with me, and you know, I got on board, and we worked for such a short time, nearly 2 years. But I resigned from the administration because I had fundamental objections about public policy and about the direction of the state.
So he never knew you as a person. Were you by recommendation?
No, apparently he'd been following my work, you know, in the public domain. You know, I have always advocated for good governance, you know, and he said he was following my work and he wanted me on board. And frankly, in the first 2 years, we did some jobs, you know, that impressed the Rivers people. For instance, you know, we expected that he was going to place a great deal of emphasis on education. He didn't. We expected he was going to place a great deal of emphasis on health care delivery. He didn't. I realized
but he built the mother and child hospital. I was there personally. I've seen some of these projects.
Yes, but you know, if you want to deliver service to the people, there has to be penetration to rural areas. There has to be a consistent public policy that you can follow through on a sector-by-sector basis. I found that was missing. And I realized that there was going to be, you know, even more toxicity in our politics, and I didn't want to be part of that. So, of course, I had to leave. You probably know that I resigned from the administration, and then I moved on to private practice, and then moved to Harvard to study. So, but I'm back now in Nigeria.
The reason I'm asking those questions, because, you know, depending on who you ask, you know, some people like the performance of Nyesom Wike, others hate his politics, and some like his politics. So it depends on who you're speaking with, because he's somehow in the mix of all of this. But you have served in the government. You sat with him during session, as you said, for 2 years. And so I wanted to find out the kind of person he is beyond this, given what is playing out in Rivers State. I had Tony Cole here with me, and he somehow delve into perhaps saying that this is a battle of attrition. It's a matter of who bleeds out and who dies first. So what's your assessment of what is playing out in Rivers State? I started by saying the more we want to get out of the conversation, the more Rivers brings us in.
You know, Wike's political ideology is personal aggrandizement. I mean, that's just the fact.
And that's a huge statement to make.
Yes, absolutely. And so, you know, I believe, you know, that the purpose of public service is to deliver service to the people in an accountable fashion. You know, but ironically, you know, we now have an administration that is taking a completely opposite direction. The Fubara administration has said, look, we must have to change direction, we must change the trajectory and make sure that resources meant for Rivers State are meant for the development of the state and the benefit of everyone. So we are gravitating clearly away from the politics of state capture, from the politics of privatization.
Are you accusing him of Wike of state capture?
No, I'm not accusing him. This is the reality. I served in the administration. I resigned as a result of that. So this is not a matter of accusing.
But his argument again is to the effect that Fubara was politically a neophyte. He knew, perhaps in his view, Fubara couldn't have won even a ward in his local government.
Fubara was
just hold on. But because of his influence and his, you know, his political stature, he was able to convince the political class to say, look, give this gentleman his chance. And with his impact, he was able to put Fubara in power. And he's saying, look, this guy is an ingrate. Perhaps that is what he's saying. Is there merit in his own argument?
No, there's no merit because, you know, a lot of people came together in the PDP, you understand, to decide who the governor was going to be. And, you know, it fell on Fubara. Now, when Fubara eventually became a general election candidate, he was democratically elected by all of the Rivers people. So his loyalty is not to any particular individual, but to the Rivers people. I was in government before I took an oath of office. I took oath of allegiance. You don't take these oaths, you know, to worship a particular individual. You take the oath to serve the Rivers people. And that's exactly what Fubara is doing.
You write to the office on the platform of a political party, and these politicians, they have their own interests at the end of the day.
No, Jeffrey, let me tell you, you know, when you get into public office, your loyalty must be to the people. And what do the people want? They want power to serve the people themselves. Sovereignty lies with the people, not with any particular individual.
So in your view, what is, my apology, what is Nyesom Wike asking for that is so difficult to come through?
What is asking for, and this is also for the benefit of Nigerians.
Because both of them have not told us what it is.
What is asking for is very clear, Jeffrey, and I want to be very clear to Nigerians who may be watching this. Nyesom Wike wants state resources to be diverted to his personal use.
No, that's an allegation.
That is not an allegation.
No, you cannot.
Listen. You know, you asked me a question. Do you want me to answer or not?
No, I'm saying because it's a strong allegation that you need to substantiate.
I am just telling you, he himself has made it very clear that he wants to retain the structures of the state. All right, now structures
is different from
no. Structures simply means that I want to have access to the resources of the state. I want to be able to appoint those who will be in government. I want to be able to be the political godfather and resource manager of the state. Now, what the governor of Fubara is saying that no, we can't allow that to happen. We want to make sure that the resources meant for the people are used for the development of the state, for the benefit of everyone. So some people, especially the media, tends to characterize this as a personal disagreement between the governor and Nyesom Wike. I see it differently. I see it as an ideological struggle between the forces of state privatization led by Nyesom Wike and the forces of people's sovereignty led by the governor. So what the governor is simply saying, Jeffrey, I need to be clear about this, is that the resources of the state must be used for the development of the state and for the benefit of everyone. So this is a clear ideological struggle.
Some would say your posturing they may accuse your posturing of being on two parts. First, because you disagreed with his public policy when you served with him. Second, the fact that you're from the area where the governor comes from.
No, that's
You're from the River Rhine area.
No,
your name is Stan George, right?
Listen, look, when you are in government, when you are in government, you simply serve the Rivers people. And in Rivers State, we have a collective persona called the Rivers people. We don't recognize, Riverine or Upland. The Governor Fubara is serving the people of Rivers State. If you check the budget, for instance, Jeffrey, his budget is 3 billion naira for education. It's going to go across all the schools in the 23 local government areas. He's going to spend 97 billion naira on health in 2025, and that is going to achieve health penetration in all the 23 local government areas. He's not looking at who is from where, who is not from anywhere. In fact, just 2 weeks ago, in December, he launched a series of programs, and a lot of these programs were actually located in Obiakwa, where the former governor is from. So there is no regionalism or discrimination in terms of the distribution of state resources.
We will come back to this issue of Fubara versus Nyesom Wike, but I'd also like you to comment on, because you've made strong allegation, which I told you have to defend, because we're on live TV. If you make an allegation, you have to defend it or prove it. The issue of Dr. Peter Odile in the mix of all of this. He was a big friend of Nyesom Wike. In fact, himself and Amechi were not the best of friends throughout the 8 years. Nyesom Wike came and brought him on board, and now Dr. Odile has now joined forces with similar Fubara. What do you make of this new development? Because there has been back and forth as to who should apologize to who.
No, Jeffrey, I'm sorry that you're degrading the conversation. Because
no, I'm not degrading. I'm stating the facts.
Listen, what did Dr. Odile say? He simply said exactly what I'm saying here. The state cannot be privatized. The state cannot be appropriated as a personal estate. And that Governor Fubara is making sure that the resources of the state are used for the development of the state and for the benefit of everyone. That's exactly what he said. And that is the broad spectrum of sentiments across Rivers State. So there is nothing there. So the fact is that it is sometimes the media that tends to mischaracterize this as a problem between Governor Fubara and Nyesom Wike. They have no personal problems. I just explained to you that what is happening in Rivers State is a serious ideological struggle.
But whatever problems they're having personally, whether it's between Nyesom Wike and Dr. Peter Odile, or Nyesom Wike and Mr. Fubara, the governor of the state, is affecting the governance of the state.
No, that's exactly what I told you.
Every day we talk about things. Yeah, we're talking about the few we're squirming on our chairs when they fight all this. Nobody's talking about development.
The governance is not affected. Let me tell you, in the less than 2 years Governor Fubara has been in office, he has quietly employed 2,000 doctors. 2,000 doctors to service and upgrade the healthcare delivery systems. In fact, when I was commissioner, it's good that you raised this point. When I was commissioner, as commissioner for information, I announced that the government of Nyesom Wike was going to upgrade all the zonal hospitals in Rivers State. Those projects were completely abandoned. But now Governor Fubara has come on board and is bringing some of these programs and some of these projects together, and is going to achieve even greater health penetration across the board. So the point is that the more and more of these resources you use for the benefit of the Rivers people, the lesser and lesser the likelihood that any particular individual is going to be appropriating these resources for themselves.
I want you to be fair in argument. Are you saying that Nyesom Wike did not perform well as a governor?
Nyesom Wike did a lot in terms of filling boreholes and filling potholes. Listen. You asked the question. Listen, Jeffrey. If you invite me to the program, you've got to allow me to answer the question. You asked me about his performance.
Okay, go ahead.
I served in the administration, and I'm telling you that Nyesom Wike succeeded in some areas. For instance, he filled out a lot of potholes. There were so many potholes in Rivers State when he came. He filled out a lot of them. And before he left, after 8 years, he ended up, constructing about 12, overpasses, flyovers across Port Harcourt, especially in the Obiakwa local government area. Well, not a single flyover goes across two communities that are in the riverine, meaning that there was a disproportionate concentration of projects in particular areas, close to the governor's home. So the point I'm making is that if you want to serve a state, people in a state that has that kind of coastal character, you've got to spread development across the board, and that's exactly what Governor Fubara is doing.
I've covered some assignments in that area. Without speaking for Nyesom Wike, I also want to say that the road that leads, I think it's Ogoni Andoni Opobo, Who did that road? Is it not Nyesom Wike? That now makes Opobo people to be able to go to their villages.
No, you see, Fubara is doing quite a lot.
Let's take facts. Let's state fact.
Yeah.
Nyesom Wike constructed that road.
Look, some of these roads...
Mr. Tam, did Nyesom Wike construct that road?
No,
I'm not speaking for him. I just want to
some of these are from the state. Some of these roads you are mentioning actually have a history that precedes Nyesom Wike's arrival on the scene.
Okay.
For instance, some of these roads were started by other judge, taken up to a certain extent by other governors until it got to Nyesom Wike, and now Fubara is completing quite a number of them. In fact, do you know that in the past, in less than 2 years, in the past 18 months or so, Governor Fubara has completed 18 major roads, some of them inherited, abandoned completely by the previous administration of Nyesom Wike. So if I were to suggest, to direct our conversation, I would suggest that we leave these personalities and actually focus on the administration, that is in place now. What kind of service delivery is the governor involved in? Because in the final analysis, Jeffrey, the most important thing to the Rivers people is not Nyesom Wike and Dr. Odile, and what they are worried about is how much development can we bring to rural areas. Rural areas have been abandoned for decades. They don't care about Nyesom Wike. What they want is development, and I think we can pivot our conversation more and more.
I'm managing the conversation. I know exactly what I'm doing. I know exactly what I'm asking. I'm asking because Nyesom Wike has constantly said that when he was governor, there are developments spread across every part of the state. Are you dismissing that?
And I'm just telling you that is wrong. If you look at the demographic distribution of these projects, there was disproportionate attention on Obiakpo local government and Port Harcourt. In fact, as a member of the State Executive Council, I'm telling you that Nyesom Wike announced as a principal policy of state that he was going to concentrate his developments in Obiakpo and Port Harcourt alone. And that was what he did. Fair enough. But the point I'm making is that...
I need to hold you to account.
Yeah.
Are you saying from his mouth to your listening ears that Nyesom Wike opened his mouth and said he will concentrate his project in Obiakpo?
Not just did he say so. Not just did he say so.
You claim he said so.
No, listen, Geoffrey. Not only did he say so, the actual material facts speak for themselves. I told you that there are about 12 flyovers in Rivers State right now, constructed by Nyesom Wike, and they are distributed, about 7 of them in Obiakpo local government alone. I didn't say so. These are the facts. Okay. Anyway, the most important thing, Jeffrey, is that now we have a governor who has said we must take Rivers State to a new level in terms of development, and that we must take the full advantage of what we need to do in terms of spreading development. For instance, the governor is now driving a very major legacy project, the Trans-Calabari project, which is really a life-changing project.
Just a moment.
The governor is not from Calabari area, so I'm just telling you that.
Just a moment, Dr. Tams. The reason why when you raise issues, I check you, I ask you questions, because Nyesom Wike has also spoken. So it's not when you raise this issue, I try to remember what he said. I've seen some of this project myself. So this is channels we look at facts available. So if you say something that is not fact, I will check you. So that's why I'm asking all of these questions as to why, because nobody is speaking for anybody. You understand?
Sure.
So in going forward, what is the way forward to bring some level of tranquility so that we can move forward as a state?
Look, I just told you there's an ideological struggle that is unfolding in Rivers State. It's not a personal problem between the governor and Nyesom Wike. I just told you that. What is unfolding is a historical ideological struggle. And what's the nature of this struggle? The Rivers people want to control their resources for the benefit of everyone. Nyesom Wike is leading his cronies to make sure that the resources of Rivers State are diverted for his personal use. So this is a strong
allegations against strong allegations.
Listen, Nyesom Wike
you're making strong allegations.
I don't understand what you mean by allegations. The man himself has said many times in the public domain that he will make the governor suffer until he succumbs. This is on record.
Okay. Those were your words, not ours. Dr. Tams, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Dr. Austin Tam George is a former Commissioner of Information, Academic and Communication Consultant. Thank you so much for coming through, and we wish Rivers State the very best. And we hope you can defend all of the allegations you made against the former governor. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks for having me, Jeffrey.
All right, thank you so much for your time and company. And, well, it's been quite a journey. Sean Kimbaloye returns tomorrow on the program. Thank you for your time. And Jeffrey Uzoma, bye-bye.